Okay, welcome to the Virtual Cheese Awards 2022, showcasing the best of British cheese. I'm Lee and I'm moderating this session, and today we'll be judging F2, Best Artisan Hard Cheese made from own herd. I'd like to introduce our two judges, Bronwyn and Perry, if you just want to both give a few words.
Sure. I'm Bronwyn Percival. I manage the buying and the technical side of things at Neilshire Dairy in London, and I'm co-author with my husband Francis of a book called Reinventing the Wheel: Milk, Microbes, and the Fight for Real Cheese.
Oh, I follow that. I'm Perry from Rennet and Rind. I'm the head of cheese here. We're a cheesemonger based in Cambridge. I'm a World Cheese Judge, certified affineur, and as of yesterday, affineur of the year. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you both. The judges will use a point system for judging, scoring against 5 different attributes. And the winner of the class will go forward to the best in category stage. So without further ado, shall we grab the first cheese, which is F21099.
Perfect.
Probably should have brought some scissors.
I've seen it done with cheese knives, and thankfully we have only had one accident today.
Oh God.
Okay, I shall be your second.
In the line of duty.
So we're going for appearance, aroma, texture, flavour, and true to the character. And as you say various things, I'll capture some of that in the background. So if you, as you go through, if you just want to give your scores as you go, then that'll work nice as well.
Okay. Yeah. So I suppose that, yeah. So we're starting with appearance. So typical kind of, I'm guessing like a Gouda style, right? The rind is quite. Yeah, so it's like a plastic coat kind of rind, which is on the outside, which is traditional with these styles. Yeah, I think there's not much fault with that I can see. It's got small little eyelets in it, and nothing too big. I can't see anything particularly wrong. What do you think, Bronwyn?
I agree. I think it looks quite even, quite polished as a piece of cheese. I would mark it pretty highly on appearance.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. What do you think? 7 or 8?
Yeah, I think, yeah, 7, 8. So let's go with 8. Let's start off with a bang, eh? I think that, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. So next up is aroma, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so the typical caramel sweetness is there. I can't notice anything particularly different or complex, I would say, but it's kind of what I was expecting.
Yeah. No, I agree. Sort of a cooked, slightly sulfurous note to it, but again, in keeping with the style of cheese, it smells like it has quite a lot of sort of projection.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. So I think just because there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of complexity there, I'll go like a 7. Yeah.
I'm up for that.
Look at us, eh?
See, professionals.
Okay, texture. Yeah, so I quite like its pliancy that's there, you know, the break that you get. It's quite firm, but not too soft. A good balance, I think, actually.
Is that a little bit of free moisture within it that I see along the crack that I've...
Oh, yeah.
Again, I don't think that's a desperate fault necessarily, provided there aren't any off flavors, but it is interesting that in the sort of subtle fissures within the cheese there, it does look like there's a little bit of free moisture.
Yeah. Yeah, so so I kind of like, it feels quite smooth. Yeah, that free moisture is there, which you've been talking about. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it. And I think providing, yeah, like you said, with the flavor, it comes through. I think I would kind of be near the 7 or 8.
Yeah.
I think.
I think so. I think the thing I've noticed most about it is it's quite supple. Sometimes with these cheeses, they can be quite kind of like dried out and tough, and this doesn't seem like that. It's probably fairly young, but it just feels quite giving. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm there with you. Yeah.
There you go. The big one, right? I quite like that.
It's quite easy. I sort of want a little bit more from it. It feels to me like it's a little bit sort of, the flavor isn't as complex as maybe I'd like it to be. From the aroma, I thought there might be more sort of savory base layers within it. And it tastes, tastes a bit cheesy. It tastes nice. I don't get any off flavors, but I'm a little underwhelmed by it as an expression of something, particularly a farm's own herd.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree. I think what I do like about it is its finish. I find that's quite clean and quite pleasant. I think it's got everything that we were kind of expecting in there, but like you said, I think it's just ever so slightly underwhelming, but still a good cheese.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of around like 6.5, that area.
Yeah, I'd probably say 6.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
6.
Cool. And trueness to type, is that the next one, or?
Yeah, true to character.
For a Gouda style?
Yeah. I can't particularly think any fault with that whatsoever. I mean, I think it's instantly recognizable. The base notes of what a Gouda should be is there. You know, the only slight area is that element of real softness in terms of being true to type. So I'd go like 8 or 9.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Let's go 8, I think.
8. Perfect. Yeah.
I'll Gouda.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Perfect.
On to the second one then. We should have 1018.
1018.
Yeah, lovely smell as you open it.
You can definitely tell that has a natural rind from the aroma.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so visually, you know, you can see obviously the cloth marks that are on there, which obviously, and in terms of the gradient in from the rind, that's quite even. In terms of the texture internally, I'm just trying to work out if that's, you know, the cutting and obviously it being delivered to us, that sort of, I put it, mine seems quite inconsistent. And overall, kind of not as clean, I suppose.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like if we're looking at the appearance, I'm seeing a lot of sort of feathering right under the rind where it's been cut. And it's sort of sending me the message that it might be a little bit dry.
Yeah. Yeah, and that may be intentional, I suppose. You know, if it pays off on flavor, but I don't think it's particularly a visually appealing style. What it is, nothing particularly wrong, but not on a level that kind of like wows me, I suppose.
No, I agree. I like the appearance of the rind on the back, but the cut face looks a little bit like it might be a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. So a 5, 6.
Yeah, let's give it a 6.
6, perfect.
Is it Aroma next?
Aroma. It doesn't. You can do them in any order.
Okay.
Once we get through all 5, we don't have to be quite so prescribed.
Lee would keep us on the straight and narrow, right?
I had a running joke with one of the previous sessions where they got to the point where they say, "Oh, we'll do Aroma last." Because Lee's always saying we're missing it. Yeah. So it's not particularly powerful in terms of the sense of how it radiates. So like distance under the nose, I think it's very typical of maybe this style of cheese that you would get.
it edges towards that kind of soapy note, right?
Yeah.
Which I think that's like the overarching that I'm good at.
Slightly waxy crayon note, which I mean, I don't want to hazard too much of a guess, but this seems like it might be a sheep's milk cheese.
Yeah. I think that's a good guess, and I think that, you know, lamb's wool kind of is there, moving into that soapy kind of area. Which it's going to be interesting to try it, because we've got that dry texture, that kind of slightly gnarly appearance, and that kind of strong soapy sheep kind of aroma.
I feel like if I'm really looking for them, I'm getting sort of some nuttiness and some fruitiness, but it feels like those are almost being suppressed a little bit by those other kind of more primary smells that are
I totally agree. If we like somehow isolate the soapiness like that out of there, then you can see something underneath just kind of like trying to break through.
Totally.
Yeah. Got ya. And then we're on texture, right? Yeah.
Do we need to give an aroma note remark?
A score.
6 again?
I kind of I think maybe a 5 on this one.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm not angry at it. I just feel like if you could dial back on that and we got more of that, Are you okay with that?
Totally.
Perfect. And then texture. So it's got that kind of slight granular kind of crumble, which I would expect visually kind of looking at it. It's got a degree of pliancy, which is quite interesting. And it's got a nice crack to it. I think it's kind of, it seems like a bit of a hybrid between a, pecorino, manchego kind of esque that's going on there.
I agree. There's a nice sort of appearance along the broken surface that I like. It's very interesting looking at it like right under the rind versus more towards the center, because it's behaving quite differently. It does feel to me like it's quite dry, like it has dried during its maturation.
I think you're totally right. And I think, as I kind of pull the knife in and I kind of twist the crack there, it gets this kind of crack, which I kind of see in the maturing rooms if things are too dry or dangerous of cracking for a little bit longer. And I think maybe like if we saw the cheese whole, I think we'd see some concerns there, I think.
Yeah.
So a 5, 6. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Let's call it a 5.
Let's call it a 5. Yeah. Perfect. Well, that's quite a surprise, I think.
Yeah. There's more life to it than I was expecting based on the aroma and the texture. It's quite salty.
Yes.
But there's more. I guess the word I'm thinking is life. There's just a little bit more stuffing and a little bit more projection in that respect than in the others.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I was going to taste it and that farmyard soapy was going to be up front. I only got that just a small note at the end, which is nice to know where it came from, right? That kind of those nutty, savory edges there. And I'm pleasantly surprised by the flavor.
There's no heat or kind of rancidity that I can. So I guess I'd mark it a little higher. I do think the salt is a tiny bit high.
Yep.
But I might give it a 7. 7 point, or an 8. I don't know what you think.
I think a 7. So I'm pleasantly surprised, which is great.
What about the character of it? Or is it true to character? It's probably more apt. Good question.
Yeah. So we're thinking Manchego, Pecorino hybrid kind of style, right? So I think it kind of falls slightly short of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I think it's distinguished, and I think, you know, now I can see what it's going in terms of true to type, but I think it just falls short of the pecorinos and manchegas that I know.
Okay, I'm good with that. I agree. I think so. So what are you thinking? Like 6?
Yeah, I think 6. Yeah, yeah, cool.
Brilliant.
Perfect.
Thank you. So the next one will be 1048.
Okay.
It does linger, that one, doesn't it? Mm. Okay, so visually, I find that quite appealing. The shape, the rind seems to be well formed. The flora that's there seems perfectly fine. The gradient in is maybe a little bit too quick, I think. And the islets are kind of consistent across it. So yeah, and the coloring is apart from that gradient, it's pleasing.
Yeah, I think it is a very attractive color, nice and yellow. I don't mind the openness. It feels to me like that's probably intentional.
Yep.
And the rind has a really nice finish. And as you say, there's a little bit of a gradient where it looks like it's dried out somewhat, but that may just be part of the age. It doesn't feel like it's been dried out.
Yeah.
Overall. So yeah.
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 So 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Right. Aroma, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. You know, you're definitely getting a bit of farm there. Definitely a bit of kind of earthiness that's coming through, grassy, a little bit of kind of rawness to it.
I mean, there's a very pronounced cellar smell to the rind, which, you know, I guess whether or not that's a good thing or is an intentional thing is an interesting question. I find it a little bit overpowering. That said, we also just took it out of its package. So it may be that it's concentrated.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that for me, the one that I've got actually, on the rind, you know, how do I put it? That's very, you know, kind of unsatisfying, actually, the rind. There's that cellar element that's there, but I think for me, what I'm overriding getting is like a style of ammonia, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the aroma of the cheese itself, it smells buttery and a little bit sour, but I'm not like, it's quite a primary aroma. I'm not getting a lot of aromas of ripening, if that makes sense. It feels like aromas of fermentation.
Yeah, there's a sharp kind of chemical to it as well that I'm getting that's in there. And I'm kind of more talking myself out of it. Where would you like to go?
I am not a huge fan of the aroma of this. I would go for a 5.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I totally agree. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what's next? Is that
texture?
Texture.
Yeah. It's one of those, think of it at the outside in, so appearance, smell, texture, taste, and overall, does it fit?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's quite weird because it's kind of got that crumbly, kind of Wensleydale-esque kind of texture to it, but the chunks are larger and more kind of like a Play-Doh, really.
I completely agree. I was surprised as it was breaking down at how cakey it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that. I was expecting it to be much more of a sort of smooth cheese, based on its appearance than what it feels like it actually is. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not texturally. I'm not as keen on that.
I'll be interested. I wonder if we could hold off giving the texture score until we've tasted it, because I wonder what the texture is going to be like.
Honestly, you can do the whole thing and then give all the scores at the end. We all we need is for you to give your best opinion of the cheese.
So it's actually not as rough in my mouth as I was expecting it to be based on the feeling of it. But it's still, the texture is a little bit.
It kind of goes from this chewy expectation, the large kind of areas stay and kind of, for me, make the flavor a little bit more inconsistent, then break away, and then you're kind of left with not that much, and then kind of really slightly, unpleasant granular, right?
Yeah, just a little grippy. So yeah, I think I would maybe go 6 on the texture.
Yeah, okay, 6, yeah.
And then flavor.
Yeah.
There is a sourness there that lingers a little bit, and it's sort of a barny kind of cowy sourness that maybe on one level you would say might be associated with, milk, and could be an interesting thing for somebody. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that kind of play with the the tonic kind of bitterness that's there. I'm not particularly overwhelmed. I think it's a good cheese. I think it just lacks that kind of depth and complexity. It's fairly sort of one-dimensional. So I'm thinking 5, 6.
Yep. I think I'm going to go with 5. There's just a bit diffuse.
Good. Yeah, I agree. 5.
Cool. And then the trueness to type aspect. I'm not sure what I would say, because I don't know what type of, what would you hold this up against?
I have no idea. For me, it feels like into kind of some style of a territorial type.
Based on the texture, based on the flavor, I agree with you, because there's the acidity there that's sort of sitting quite prominently within the flavor, and yet the appearance of it leads me to think it's going to be this more smooth kind of continental style cheese. So I guess it seems unfair to rank it, to hit it too much based on the fact that it's playing with our expectations in that way, but I guess that's what they're asking. And
okay. So 5?
5. Yeah.
Right down the middle. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think the character one's a difficult one to answer, and I think everybody's had the same sort of thing. It's whether you're matching it to a cheese that you're matching it to, or whether you're matching it to the category itself.
Yeah.
As long as you're consistent, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So we should be moving to 1107.
1107.
So I think we can half recognize this style, perhaps. Very typical of what I would expect. I kind of like the rind is well established. That's in there. The covering seems even. Maybe a little bit more lumpy than I would like on the rind, and the openings. I'm pretty pleased with that.
Yeah, I think it looks very even. I like the rind. It looks like that really healthy, moleskinny, this is alive. It's a good covering for a cheese. I'm not sure it's a rind I would probably eat, but I think as as Ryan's go, it's attractive.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think I'm kind of on a 8 for this one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Aroma. It's difficult, this one, because it's kind of patchy for me in different places. Obviously, naturally towards the rind, you're getting that mushroom, earthy, which is typical kind of with these styles. I am getting a degree of ammonia that's there, which I'm kind of particularly getting from this bit, actually. I don't know if you can work out the top of yours, but particularly here, it's just a hot spot for it.
More than on the other side, which is interesting, which doesn't smell quite as ammoniated. That is, I mean, I wonder if that's the last side that was down on the shelf or something as simple as that. But
yeah, or maybe a little bit too long, or just an uneven turn, or I mean, there's a plethora of things I suppose that could be there. But the interior, that lactic, grassy, tick, it is that style, right? Yeah.
Definitely. 7?
7. Yes, 7. Yes. Yeah. Okay. And should we do mouthfeel and flavor together, right? Yeah. Smooth to cut, actually. Yeah.
When you were looking at this, were you thinking it was going to be a sort of territorial style like a Caerphilly, or more of like a Tum style?
That's interesting you would say that, because I was like, as I was unwrapping it, I was like, Caerphilly, and now I feel more Tom.
Yeah.
Texture, I think that's just quite typical. I think it pulls together quite well when applied with a little bit of heat. The kind of crumbliness is there that's just subtle, and then a little bit of heat comes together. Now, would you say this is a Tom or a Caerphilly?
At this point, I'm definitely Tum. Yeah. It's interesting. Even when I was looking at it at the beginning, I'm like, sort of like a really tall, firm Saint Nectaire. Maybe I was being influenced by the rind there as well, but it doesn't have that sort of fluffy, demineralized texture that I associate with British territorial cheeses. It feels smoother and more continental to me.
Yeah. I really like that. I think it's quite subtle, and that lactic that we were smelling is there. The rind isn't as overpowering on the palate as I thought it would be, actually. And I think it's just got a freshness to it, which I've always liked for these styles, and I think it carries it really well.
I agree. I like that. If I was going to be super picky, I would say I want more aromatic complexity. I want more length of flavor. I want a little bit more profundity, which is not to say I want it to be stronger. I want it to be more complex. But I feel like as a sort of building block for ultimately getting those flavors, it's very impressive.
Yeah, I think there's only one thing right at the end I don't quite like about it. That could be the rind, and if you do get it, I think there's just a bit of unsatisfying aftertaste that's there. But that's right at the end. So so I'm thinking I was kind of up on 8, and then I got this taste and I wanted to go down to 7.
Yeah, I'm good with. So we're thinking on flavor, we're 7.
Yes.
Texture,
flavor
8.
Yes, yeah, 8. I think texturally it's really good. Yeah. True to type. So we think it's a Tom.
Yeah.
It's
very Tony.
Well, I think visually, you've got that the typical growths that would be there. I think that's pretty true to type, to be honest. Yeah. So 9. Yeah, 9. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for that one. The next one is 1214. This is where I feel sorry for the people who are doing this at home, because all those cheese crumbs are going to end up on the floor.
Oh, no doubt.
It is stacking up on the left-hand side there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So visually, obviously, I think we know what it is, but quite distinguished, isn't it? But visually, that's really appealing. The obviously the organic outer that they're using. I think people who are watching this will know what it is. Has always been really, really pretty.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that sort of flossy covering of mold is one of the things that makes it so attractive. There, it's just very, very delicate and fine.
Yeah, it's that covering is actually remarkably even as well. That's there. The kind of the interior is a little bit patchy for me, but that could be the packaging and obviously the transport. So overall, I
got a few
happy.
sort of surprising vertical cracks in mine. I don't know if you can see that there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can see that.
But I think that's pretty minor. It looks pretty even. What do you think? 8?
Yeah, I think an 8. I think an 8. I think, like I said, the patchiness of the coloration that I'm having is the only fault that I can find in it.
Yeah. Are we aroma? Are we? Yeah.
Aroma? Yeah. I mean,
it's subtle.
Subtle, but remarkably clean.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of sour milk-esque. Near the rind, that kind of age cellar, kind of vibe going on. Yeah.
No ammonia.
Yeah, none.
It's very primary, but I think very pleasant. Yeah.
Yeah. 8.
I think it's about I think as an overall aroma doing what it should do, I think 8 is a fine score for it. I wouldn't say it's like the most interesting aroma of the cheeses that we've tried so far, but there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, totally. There's something masterful in the simplicity of it, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, texturally, I love it. It's very smooth, and leaves sort of little dashings of kind of the small crumbly bits, which is just really pleasant. Coats the palate really well. I like it.
I agree. I think again, the thing about this style of cheese is that when it's good, it's both fluffy and soft and smooth at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I think this captures that balance really, really nicely. It's quite soluble, like you said, and very, very pleasing. So yeah, I would say high marks on texture.
Yeah. Shall we go for a 9?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, like I think we were getting with Aroma, obviously a subtle cheese, that sourness coming in, the grassiness being there. The longevity is a little bit surprising for me. I quite like the length of it. Mm-hmm. Nothing particularly bad, but I'm struggling to pick out anything distinctive.
Yeah, I think that would be my main criticism of it, is that it's entirely without fault, but it's not very memorable. It's not very profound. And I feel like maybe I don't always want profundity from my cheese, but I wish it had a little bit more depth.
Yeah, and I think this style is quite Moorish. Because it's subtle and light, you can keep on going back for more and you don't realize you've eaten a kilo of cheese. Yeah. So
session cheese,
yeah. So I'm thinking 7.
Yeah, I think 7 is fair.
Okay. And then true to type.
I mean, I think, again, define type. It seems like people run up against this is an odd one. I mean, yeah, you know what it is. It's almost a type unto itself, and I would say it's, I just said 8.
Yeah, 8. Yeah.
Great.
Perfect. Excellent. On to the next one then, which is 1174.
1174.
Yeah, so I think we have a Manchego style here, I think.
I agree.
You can see that's, the color is, it's got an oily texture on the outside. Very potent, actually, as you open it from the backpack. I've got kind of some cracks that are emerging here. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh yeah.
There.
Yeah.
I
think I might have the matching crack right there.
Oh, there you go. So that's obviously a little bit of fault that's happening there. On the round, I think the rind is interesting. That's there.
Looks like there's some maybe color differences around that crack or right above it, that there's a little bit of a bleached aspect to the curd running down the middle, like a lighter patch. Again, it's being super, super picky.
Yeah.
Overall, it's a handsome cheese.
Yeah. That's a good description, a handsome cheese. I think it is, actually. And I think without that fault, I'd be moving around, 7 or 8. And I think maybe that fault that's occurring there and on yours, I think I'm about 7.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, so that, I'm certainly sheep's milk, right?
Yeah, and it has a little bit of that slightly, what I think of as a sort of lipolytic heat, just a hint of it, which is part of the character of the style of cheese possibly, but it's certainly present in a way that it wasn't in the other sheep's cheese.
Yeah, and I like the way, the other sheep's cheese we had was, pretty full-on soap aggression, where I find this area is just so much more delicate and not overpowering and not one-dimensional in that. And it kind of borders that area of slightly challenging, but in a good way.
Yeah. No, I think it's projecting plenty of aroma. I'd give it probably a pretty high mark.
Okay.
Yeah. 7 or 8?
Yeah, I think 8, actually. I'm quite pleased with that. It's difficult to get that sheep controlled, and I quite like where that is.
Yeah.
See, I like that texture.
I like the texture. I think it, like, a certain amount of that granularity is implicit in this style. So I think I would probably rank it high on texture. It's very interesting that the taste of it, I'm getting quite a heavy phenolic note. That sort of plastery, Band-Aid kind of aroma, which I wasn't expecting. And I feel like it's sort of dominating the flavor a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. Slightly. There's also a little bit of an itch and like a tingly, I don't know if that's a histamine kind of.
Yeah, I was going to say histamine is kind of the thing that I'm getting, a familiar, Parmigiano kind of, and It's interesting because I kind of feel like the appearance, the texture, and the flavor kind of match. Though I think they're in the same body of text.
Ever so slightly low in salt.
Yeah, yeah. I think maybe just a tad more. I think maybe things might be a little bit different. I'm struggling to detect that salt now. Yeah. So I'm thinking, like a 6, 7.
Yeah, maybe a 7 on the texture and a 6 on the flavor.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
True to type, Manchego style. Obviously, we don't have the kind of typical imprints on the outside, but I don't know if I would expect that from a more farmhouse production that's there. But instantly recognizable. So yeah.
8?
8, yeah.
8?
Yeah, 8, yeah.
Brilliant. The next one will be 1002.
Yeah. So visually, it appears quite dry. Cloth bound again. The kind of drawing in from rind is quite uneven for me around the cheese. The rind is quite uneven as well, actually, but I don't know if that's damage. I'm not quite sure.
You mean like back here where we've actually got divots going in?
Yeah, yeah.
Like you
Weirdly,
can
I haven't got those.
This has a sort of a drawstring cloth that's been used on it. And so I would maybe expect a little bit of that unevenness here, but I definitely think I'm a little surprised by the unevenness on the back of it.
I think I have a different piece from yours. Mine's much more brighter on the top.
Oh, that's interesting. It is quite different. And we're definitely on 1002. Is that right? Maybe I haven't got the wrong one.
Definitely.
Yeah, 1002.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to have different experiences here. Like visually, it's quite gnarly. I can see some faults with it. I'm thinking on this one, a 4 or 5.
So this is a really interesting one, and I'm just throwing this out there to be like controversial, but I wonder whether we are sort of grading as perfection as absence of fault, and maybe there's an element of like gnarliness that might be part of the character of a cheese. And it's funny because I agree, like if we're grading it on like what's perfect, this definitely is like around a 4, but I almost wonder whether the direction that pulls us is in a way where, you know, suddenly we live in a world where all the cheese is sort of like perfectly turned out, but maybe not that interesting.
I think maybe I totally agree. You know, I'm big fan of character and gnarliness. And I think, Lee, flavor is quite heavily weighted, isn't it? Flavor
is weighted, everything else isn't.
Yeah. So hopefully...
a 50% uplift on flavor.
50%. So hopefully maybe that might come through.
If the flavor is extraordinary, it can.
But I'm with you. It was character versus perfection, right?
Yeah. And you know, and that said, like, there are elements of the appearance that I don't particularly like in terms of like the waxiness of this surface. Almost that bothers me more. That pallidness bothers me more than the gnarliness down below. I'm not going to argue that heavily against a 4. I just think it's something we can be looking out for. So I'm with you on 4. That's fine.
Yeah, I agree.
I was just going to say, as a layman, the thing that sort of I noticed the fact that it does say Artisan,
Yeah.
which gives them a fair breadth of.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
It's Artisan, isn't it? Yeah.
I think what we might want to do as well is maybe if we do happen upon that that balance, maybe we could star it and put it somewhere and return.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'd hate to think that, you know, that a cheese which is amazing. Yeah.
I only think this in my experience working, you know, in my job, I feel like I'm always the one who's like, that's not right. That's not right. And then I see customers like gravitate towards cheeses on the pack. That's so wrong. But actually that's like part of what they're looking for and part of what's giving them enjoyment. And it's this constant, you know, push and pull. So should we say should we say 4 with a little asterisk by it, where if we're really looking at this in the round and that's the deal breaker, we revisit?
Cool. That would be amazing if we could do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
If Lee's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, texturally, it's quite crumbly actually. I was expecting maybe some kind of cheddar texture to it, and it's quite fine actually. The crumble that's there.
This feels more like a territorial cheese than a cheddar.
Yeah.
Bit of that sort of crayon-y.
Yeah, definitely. I am struggling to get much else on the aroma. That crayon that's there. Yeah.
Slightly lipolytic again. I think that my impression is the texture is a little dry and a little bit granular, but it's almost like I think that's part of the cheese. I think it's a really rustic, like a really rustic expression of a territorial.
Yeah. So texture, I'm thinking.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm thinking like
6,
7.
6 or 7. Yeah.
Yeah, I quite like it. It's I think that 7 is just personal preference. I'm on the fingers. I'm not as keen, but on the palate, I quite like what it does.
Let's go with 7 then.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of flavor, again, it's a bit craggy, but interesting. Again, always I'm like, where's the depth? Where's the complexity? I feel like I want more, but I think it is saying something interesting.
I definitely think it is.
So I mean, I might even go to 7.5, 8 on the flavor.
Yeah, I'm happy to go 8. I like the power that it has. I like the way that it's very prickly in terms of where it's hitting the flavors, but ultimately enjoyable, and the longevity is there. And I kind of want to go back for more.
Okay. Yeah. No, it feels like a different expression of a session cheese in a way.
Yeah, definitely. So we're true to type now.
I've got a gap for aroma as well.
Oh, aroma.
Yeah. So
everybody forgets aroma.
We
speak about it, don't we?
About it. You've discussed it. You just didn't shout score out.
I'm not as big a fan of the aroma. To me, it has more of that sort of crayon-y, lipolytic. It's not an inviting aroma. It's strong. It's giving off a lot of aroma, but it's not like the best for me. So I might go like 5 on the aroma.
Yeah, I think 5. I think you have to really search around for what you're finding there. And it's powerful under the nose, but doesn't emanate that much, which is interesting. Yeah.
And trueness to type, I guess I go a little higher. It's cloth bound. It's got that crumbly texture without being super bird seedy or like really sawdusty, which I think is a good thing for a territorial. So I don't know, like 8?
8, yep. 8, yep. This is going well. I like it when I've got a number in my head.
Yes. Beat me to it, absolutely.
It helps.
Okay, we're on to 1003.
1003. How are we doing on our time? Are we like going to be done at 7 o'clock? Do we need to pick up our pace, or are we okay?
The short answer is yes. You do need to pick up the pace if
Okay.
you want to be done for 7 o'clock. You're taking about 6 or 7 minutes of cheese.
Okay, so
And we've
we
got
need to be aiming for like
30 odd cheeses.
All right. The only thing I'm aware of is I have a 2-year-old coming through the door in 2 hours probably from now, and that's going to make noise. So it's going to be probably should.
I think as we
just want to be a bit more concise.
Yeah, I think as we're getting kind of more aligned with, I think we can really start to kind of get on timing. So visuals, I don't particularly. It looks slightly dry to me. That's there. It's gradually coming in on the outside, which is good to see. I think it's quite inconsistent on color, but so I'm not. So I'm around 6 to 7.
I might be a little higher than that. I think it's pretty even. It looks to me like another one of these territorials that's milled, but it is a little dry on the outside. Let's go with 7.
Yeah, let's go with a 7.
Cool.
Aroma, that's interesting. It feels quite floral to me.
Yeah, quite dairy, quite like floral and buttery.
I find that really pleasant.
Yeah.
Really pleasant. And that sweetness to it, I think that's great, actually. I might be near 8, 9.
Let's go with 9. I agree. Yeah. It really projects a kind of butteriness that doesn't feel too startery to me.
It feels different as well. It feels different from what I've tasted before in terms of cheeses or smelt before.
Definitely.
Which is good. That's interesting. It feels lacking.
Lacking in sort of layered depth, or
depth.
It hits that buttery note really hard.
Yeah,
it's quite one note in that dimension. It has a nice salt level, like it's
very nice salt level. Really delicate, quite nuanced. But I think I kind of, with the aroma, I kind of was feeling like a bit more. Texturally, I don't have a problem with it, actually. That slight granular that's there, I like that.
Yeah, I give it high marks on texture, slightly lower mark on flavor. So what do you think, like a 8 on texture and a 6 on flavor?
Perfect, yeah.
Cool. And then trueness to type, I would say, for a British territorial, I would say that's spot on. I'd give it 9.
Yep. I agree.
Excellent.
1105.
1105.
Let's go.
Yeah, so visually, I think that's really pretty. It's got sort of indentations on it where obviously hay or grass maybe or something like that has been used. The face of the cheese is extremely clean to me with minimal kind of openings.
Very smooth.
The rind is so even on the outside. I think for me that visually is a 9.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Very thin rind. And I do like the impression of the hay on it. So yeah, let's go 9 appearance.
Ooh. Yeah, so the aroma is just it's very light, sweet, a little bit of butter, sour.
It's funny, I'm not getting a huge amount of aroma, where the last one really kind of jumped out at me aromatically. I'm feeling like I'm really working on it.
Yeah, you really have to. It's got that kind of. It's weird because it's kind of in a similar vein, that floral kind of sugary element that's there. But yeah, nothing. You have to work for it.
And it's interesting that on the rind, I don't get a lot of aroma of hay. It's to me, it's quite ammoniated.
Yeah, it is.
So I might give it like a 6 on aroma.
Yeah, 6. I'm happy with that. Texture. So texturally, I think that's pretty awesome.
Very smooth. I
think for its rigidity that it appears to be, it dissipates so well on the palate, which is quite impressive. I think texturally that scores quite high for me.
I agree.
I think I'm sitting around 9.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If they're going for sort of lissomeness, it's pretty faultless. And the flavor is interesting too. It's very mushroomy. There's a hint of bitterness there that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, it feels a little bit kind of aged, like winey, like wine gum kind of area, which is interesting. I think it's interesting. I think texturally, I really enjoy it. I think I'm trying to place this, to be honest, in terms of scoring. I'm thinking around 8.
Yeah, I'm actually really impressed by it, and I think, I'd like the hay to come through more. It feels a little gimmicky, like it's sort of pasted on, as opposed to like an integral part of the cheese itself. But the cheese itself is nice and very evenly and correctly made. So
yeah, I'd love to know when like the hay is placed on and the timings of that. Yeah. And true to type, I'm guessing this is fairly individual. So for a farmhouse, utilizing the hay and being pretty perfect, where would you think that it may be?
I think the only thing I would mark it down for is that it feels like the hay wants to be like more of a part of it. And the two kind of like, there's a cheese and there's the hay idea. And like, I'm not getting a lot of flavor from the hay. And so I don't know, 7?
7, perfect. Yeah.
Excellent. The next one we're after then is 1083.
1083. Yeah, so a good looking cheese. I think the bloom that's on the outside seems to be well covered. It'd be interesting to see that without like the vat patch. I think the indentations are really precise. And then internally in the cheese, I think that kind of glow that it has is really satisfying. So I'm pretty visually happy with it.
The one place I knock it is it looks like it hasn't been turned enough in the mold. There's an unevenness about the shape.
Oh yes, there is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So otherwise, I would say yes, it does look really, it looks nice. So do you want to say 7?
7? Yep, 7. Yep.
There's definitely some free moisture hanging out in there.
So once again, really light. That grassy element, quite subtle. I'm getting a little bit of pronounced milk.
It's not a hugely projecting cheese. Like it, no. I feel like I'm working hard to get aroma from it.
Yep.
There's nothing bad, but it's not like characterful, maybe.
Yeah, I think this is kind of the aroma they set out for, right? It's part of the style that they're making. I think I'm happy to be near 6 or 7 on the aroma.
6. Let's go 6.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of a surprise. It's more sort of feta-like.
Yeah.
In its character than I was expecting. Quite unbroken down, acid, a little bit sharp, a little bit rough on the texture. Again, there's nothing There's nothing offensive about it in the least. I think as a cheese that I don't think if this was on a cheese board, I'd be like massively going back for more, however.
No, I think the interesting thing is just underneath the rind, there is far more going on there. There's that smoothness comes through, the feta's kind of out the window. There's more depth to it, a little bit more warmth with that freshness. And I enjoy that more, I think.
I agree.
And I would like to see more of that, I think.
Maybe this cheese is just too young.
Yeah.
Which is a choice that the cheesemaker has made as well. But I'd probably knock it a bit for being like probably too young a cheese to show its full potential.
Definitely. So I'm thinking texturally 5 or 6, flavor around 6, because I don't think there's anything harmful there, but I kind of feel like, I want more of that outer.
I agree. Texture 5, flavor 6.
Perfect. Yeah. True to type. I'm not quite sure where to position this, and I don't particularly want to hurt it by not positioning it. It appears to be farmyard, and those flavors are coming through. I think 6 or 7.
Yeah, let's go 6.
Yep.
Okay then. The next one will be 1085.
1085.
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
What do you think that is? Seaweed?
I think it's a seaweed. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty. Yeah, that's a seaweed. I think. But visually, I think a very pretty cheese. I think not being a particular massive lover of cheeses which are blended, I kind of think this kind of hits the duo of that quite well. And if you were going to use an addition, I think that's quite a visually pretty way to do it. Yeah.
And it's sort of evenly mixed in. There's not like not all on one side or.
So a 6, 7 on the visuals. Yeah. So let's go with a 6.
That's good.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't get too much of the seaweed.
No.
If that's what it is. I'm struggling to work out what the addition is. Maybe it will change. It's got like a kind of hybrid zesty hoppiness to it. Not quite hoppy. It's kind of in that category, and a freshness, but do have to work a little bit hard for it. I'm thinking around 7, 6.
On aroma? Yeah, no, I agree. It doesn't project a lot. It's hard to pin down. I'm sure that if I knew what it was, I would immediately find that in the cheese, but it's not speaking for itself.
Yeah, that's true. That is seaweed. And I don't know if I'm on board with it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not offensive, but they're not singing together in the way that I feel like sometimes when I've had a seaweed butter, I'm like, yes, this totally works. It feels a tiny bit incongruous. Maybe it's adding a little bit of aroma, but it's against the background of a cheese that's not projecting much of its own. And I'm a little.
I kind of feel like if I had it on its own, maybe without the seaweed, I'd enjoy it more. And I think that kelpie kind of vibe that it has doesn't support the cheese that well. And they're very separate. They're not playing well with one another. Texturally, I quite like it actually. It's very easygoing. I think 6 or 7. And for flavor, I'm near the 5 mark.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. So let's say 6 on texture and 5 on flavor.
True to type.
I'm gonna give it a low score. I think if you're making cheese with the milk of your own herd and you're not celebrating the flavor of that milk, but you're putting other things into it, that's not kind of true to type. So I might give it a sort of 3 or 4 on the true to type.
I'm happy to go with 3. I think you're absolutely bang on, and definitely let your milk do the work, not the seaweed.
Sounds good.
Okay, the next one is 1040.
Oh. I think we got our wish. I think.
Might be right.
Huzzah. It's interesting how the vac pack really molded on this one.
Yeah.
In comparison to the one before. Yeah, I once again I'm just judging on its own. I think it's quite a pretty appealing cheese. It looks really light and easy. The covering is, yeah. I think it's like a 7 for me. Okay.
Yeah. No, I agree. Again, I think for these, I kind of mark it down slightly for the penicillium, like very monoculture rind. But I agree with you. Let's go with 7. That's great.
Yeah, and I think it's quite difficult with the vac packing to kind of ascertain the coverage of that and what isn't a bump on the road, eh? I kind of love that texture and just on the fingers, quite.
In the same way as that other one with the hay on the outside, I feel like the texture is quite inviting, silky smooth, giving. I give it a high mark for texture. Sort of like it's almost like a soft cheese in a way, or semi-soft.
With a little bit more rigidity, and I think that's great.
There's something a little unusual about the flavor. Kind of caught me by surprise. Is it a fruitiness or a like slight chemicalness?
I'm not quite getting that. The chemical. I find it there's a vinegary to it. Not like leaning into the vinegar area rather than a chemical for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I don't particularly. I think it's actually it's really nice.
It's a little plain, I guess.
Yeah.
I know what you mean about the like maybe that volatility is like a vinegary sourness, but I feel like aromatically it's quite one note. It's not, again, it's got a complete absence of fault. But I'm not sure that it's got much to say either.
Yeah, I'm happy to be. So texture. Did we score texture, Lee?
I think we should score texture. I don't think we have yet. I might give it like an 8.
You've not scored aroma or texture.
Okay.
You've debated them.
That kind of it's light. I think like a 6.
Yeah, for the aroma, I think it's pretty.
Yeah.
Texture, I'd give it a higher score, maybe an 8.
I think I might go with 9 on the texture. Actually, I find that really satisfying. And then on the flavor, I think I might be around 6 or 7 again.
I'd be on the lower side. I would say 5 or 6. So let's go with 6.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And true to type, it's good to see the milk doing its work. And I wouldn't know where to classify it, so I'm going to be moving near 7.
Yeah, I might mark it a little lower. I just feel like it doesn't have enough personality for me. And this isn't like a farm
character
cheese. I want it to be, so I'm going to go 5. But like, should we split the difference?
Yeah.
6.
Yeah.
Yes, it
perfect.
is. All right.
Okay, so your next one is 1155.
1155. Is this the one I didn't get?
Could be 111. You let me.
Did you say?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you got
115.
Would you like to? Should we circle back to this one after?
We probably want to taste it before we make any decisions about winners. So I would say go for it. Tell me what you see.
Oh wow. Okay. It looks pretty good. Quite interesting, actually. A fair amount of character. Yeah. So I'll try and hold it up there. We've got this kind of the cloth is you know kind of light. We've got these kind of bit of character with these indentations that are there. The drawing is quite aggressive, but actually in a really satisfying way. The openings are even. I think that's quite a pretty cheese with character.
Yeah.
And I would think an 8 for that.
Sure.
Okay, and then smell. It's kind of lacking in that area. It's not as punchy as I thought it would be. It's got a kind of a light savory note, sort of like vegetal, but nothing too overpowering. Quite light, but ever so slightly underwhelming for how much it looks like in terms of character, but nothing particularly bad on the level of good. So I would say 6.
Cool.
And then texture. So it's got like a pliancy to it from the dry and the dryness, but that seems extremely even across the cheese.
Is it like a cheddar, do you think?
I think it's like a cheddar. Yeah, I think it is. Not one that I particularly recognize, to be honest, particularly with the coloration on there. So really nice and chewy. Requires a little bit too much work on the mouthfeel, but overall quite pleasant. I'd go for about a 7.
Okay.
And flavor. Weirdly, it's quite salty up front, not in an overpowering way, kind of quite saline, I suppose. But it's got an element of smoothness to it, and you're getting like a lightly cooked milk kind of area, a nice perfumey that's kind of there as well. A bit of ferment at the end. That tastes pretty good. I'd give that an 8.
Okay. And
in terms of true to type, if it is a cheddar style, we've got the cloth bound that's there. The drawing's pretty even. I'd say like 9.
Cool.
Yeah. That's quite good.
Cool. Excellent.
I
2
wish
more
I
left
could
in this class. It'll probably appear suddenly. The next one will be 1045.
Great. I'm back in the game.
This potentially has the same wrapping. I don't know if that's a thing, but
just like it might be.
Just FYI, if you felt like you were missing out on that last one.
It looks very similar to what I just saw on your board.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Visually, I'm really happy with that.
Yeah. It feels like it's not too dried out. It has a real sort of life. It feels like it, like it has life in it.
Yeah. I like the coverings of the mold that are on the rind. I like the little bit of character that it has with those kind of potted marks of pockets of mold that are coming in. I think it's fairly even across it. The eyelet's good. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm 8, 9.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
9.
9. That's nice to cut as well.
If it's a cheddar, it's quite a high moisture cheddar, it feels like, but it doesn't feel wet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's surprisingly that juxtaposed. It appears dry, and then once break open, it feels wet. But actually, I don't think it's quite interesting. Aroma is definitely the dairy milk kind of route. I'm not picking up anything particularly different.
No, I mean it's not a shouter. I would say, 6.
Yep. Nothing harmful, but nothing that blows me away.
There's a sweetness there that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And quite itchy. I don't know if you're getting...
Quite itchy, and not in that kind of pleasant way, right? At the back of the tongue, and not playful, quite harsh, which I think some people would quite like. But that I don't like that finish.
It's leaving my tongue and palate feeling pretty numb. Like,
yeah.
I mark that, yeah, down.
It would be, I think, on a next bite, that numbness would be a barrier to whatever may be going on in there.
Yes, I would say 4.
Yeah, 4. I think so, which is a bit of a shame. Did we do texture?
Texture, I thought was better than that. Maybe like a 6.
Yep, 6.
Yeah, 6.
Yep. And true to type, I think it looks like a kind of more funky cheddar, right?
Yeah, like a high moisture, somewhat low acid style of cheddar.
Yeah. 8 or 9?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't taste like a cheddar though, so I might say 7.
Okay, so let's go with 7. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, last one. 1, 2, 2, 4.
1, 2, 2, 4.
Yeah, so visually to me a really attractive cheese. The kind of dark goat color, the white in the contrast with the rind that's there. I'm loving the spots of mold that are on there.
Yep.
I always enjoy seeing those. Yeah, I think that's a really good looking cheese.
Absolutely. I think I agree. It's very even. It appears like the rind is nice and thin. I'd give it high marks for appearance. You want to say 8?
8, yep. 8, yeah. Wow.
The aroma is a little bit, I don't know, there's something a bit funky and a little not quite clean about it.
That feels like the vat packing of mold, right?
Yeah, like it's
that kind of that taint. Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know how you would like to separate that. I love the smell of the interior. I think that's kind of really subtle, milky almond milk, very, very, very light.
Yeah, quite delicate. I think I would mark it a little bit down for the overpoweringness of the rind aroma relative to the center. That's even if the backpack has exacerbated that. I might go 6.
Okay, no, I agree. You've convinced me on the backpacking thing. Texturally, I think that's great.
Very light, very smooth.
Very light, which is surprising. And then it actually becomes weirdly quite dense as it comes back together. Really smooth. I think that's a 9 for me on texture.
On texture, we're really rewarding those smooth textures. I'm okay with that. I might go 8. There's something a little bit unsubstantial about it. It's a tiny bit pasty. Yeah. Again, this is the question, like, what's it setting out to do and what are you valuing? It's almost, I mean, this is my challenge with judging cheese overall, is like, what's good? Let's construct what good is. Then we can measure things relative to it, because I don't think here we're finding an absolute judgment of a cheese's worth and quality. I think I like that texture less than you do, but I don't think that one of us is right or wrong. So you know, do we choose an average, or do we just
personal like preference versus the paper? I just think that's quite clever for being quite smooth. So yeah, I'm happy to go. Would you say 8? Did you?
Yeah, let's do 8.
Yeah, 8.
Yeah.
Flavor.
It's clean.
Cream.
Like, it's sweet. It's very easy. It's like quite primary. Like, again, it's not super profound, but it is without fault, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was expecting a bit more from it, I suppose. I like the way they've completely extracted the goat element of it, you know, that's quite clever. So it and makes it very, very clean, but quite equally quite simple.
A little bit washed out.
Yeah. I'm thinking 6 or 7.
We go 6?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then type.
Okay.
Farm goats cheese. I mean, 7.
7. Yeah. Maybe 8. I kind of feel like it's hard to compare it. I think it'd be unfair on the cheesemaker to if you
knock it too much for not being like a 8 it is.
Yeah. Brilliant. Do you want to revisit the appearance on 1002? That was the one you questioned.
What we
that was the one you said put a star next to it just in case.
Right?
Oh yeah.
So this is the one when we were talking about the character of the cheese and how gnarly it was. Should we go up a bit and give it? So I think we should go around about 6.
Yeah, let's go to 6.
Yeah.
Now I fear that when we look at the averages on these scores, we're going to have like 12 ties for first place, but let's see what the numbers say.
Yeah.
No, in short, you have an outright winner.
Is it the Gouda style we did first?
You can remember all those. No, it wasn't the Gouda style that you did.
All right, which one is
it? 1214 is the winner.
1214. Can you describe that so that I can remember which one it was?
I think Perry's wrapped most of them back up.
I'm limited on space.
1224? No.
No, 1214. It was the 5th cheese.
Yard. Oh, shouldn't say that.
Oh, I think that's understandable.
That's what it set out to do.
Cool. Which one we up to? Right. So the winner was F2 1214. I'd like to thank our sponsors for the judges packs, South Carnarvon Creameries and Butler's Farmhouse Cheeses for our aprons. Thank you to the judges for doing such a wonderful job. The live event is on Friday the 13th even of May, judging the best in classes in the categories Best English, Irish, Welsh and Scottish cheeses, along with the awards that recognise talented and passionate people within the industry. The day will culminate with the award of the Supreme Champion for 2022. Thank you again, judges.
Thank you.
Thank you.